Hey guys, how do you choose a macaw species? I'm Kaylin, the author of The Parrot, Bliss Bond and several other books. I love macaws, but I also love all of my other 22 species, but macaws are just so special. This here is Nico, our green-winged macaw, and if you've watched my videos, you know that I just love parrots. So with over 19 species of macaws, because there are 19, I'll say original species, like a green-winged macaw, but there are additional species that are hybrids, and a hybrid is, for example, a Harlequin macaw that is, for example, half green-wing and half blue and gold macaw. With so many species, how do you choose? Plus, I do have to add a little caveat that, for example, a green-winged macaw isn't necessarily as common. That's not to say that you can't find one, especially if you contact a breeder, but it's to say that blue and gold macaws tend to be the most, I think, prolific and therefore the easiest to find. But it's kind of interesting, guys. So how do you choose? Well, I have had experiences with several species of macaws. I've had experiences with green wings, with a Harlequin, with a Catalina, with a military, and a blue and gold. Now, blue and golds are interesting, and I'm going to talk probably a little more about blue and golds, seeing as how, like I said, they're the most common. Blue and golds are interesting because I feel like I run into two kinds. Now, I am not being specific or anything. I'm telling you totally based on my experience and my perception. When I run into blue and gold macaws, for one thing, some of them are small and some of them are big. Maybe not as big as Nico. This is the second largest in the macaw species, the hyacinth macaw being the largest. And green wings are generally also still gentle giants, just like those hyacinth macaws. And let me tell you that Nico, he is definitely a gentle giant. But blue and golds, it's interesting. They vary in size more than you would expect. And I think part of that is just because there are so many of them. But that's not what I mean when I say I've met two kinds. I mean, I've met one kind that they seem sweet and friendly, and then a second kind that I swear they have this evil look in their eyes, and they just don't seem as nice and friendly. Now, I don't really get to know all of those, so I don't really know. Maybe it's my imagination. But, you know, you can tell when a parrot is friendly and when a parrot is not friendly. Not friendly is, as you can imagine, you know, a dog will show you their canine teeth, they'll go, arr. Parrots kind of do the same. They show you their beak. They kind of open it and, you know, it's kind of like, look, I'm all beak, so get away from me. That's a pretty good sign that they're not friendly. When they try to put their hand up to their foot to have you pick them up, that's a sign that they're friendly. Now, those are kind of like at the very end of both ends of the spectrum. But, so like I was saying, blue and gold, I kind of feel like they're at one of those two ends. However, generally speaking, macaw parrots are pretty amazing. They all tend to be able to take on, 10 to 15 words of language. Nico here can say hello, hi. Today I heard him say, I love you, but it was sort of in a, kind of, you know, like a ventriloquist would, you know, be able to mimic it, because without the lips, of course, some of those words are hard. He says pretty bird, and he said pretty macaw. So he definitely has some words. Oh, and I think he says cracker when he wants a treat. Do you say cracker? Can you tell? He's just like the sweetest thing. Now, not all macaws are quite so sweet, but I will say that I think it's fair to say, generally speaking, macaws are more mellow than cockatoos. More color, and yet their energy is not that of a cockatoo. Like the cockatoo should be red and rah, because that's kind of a cockatoo personality, generally speaking. Whereas macaws, they can be pretty wild and stuff, but they're just not as, I feel like, Energizer Bunny energetic as a cockatoo. Now, another thing that we can generalize about is Hahn's macaws, for example, the smallest in the macaw species. They're so cute, and they're almost like a big conure, because Hahn's macaws are, you know, that big. Generally speaking, the smaller the parrot, and this is true for the macaws, the more energetic they are, and they kind of, you know, they're a little more active. The larger the parrot, like Nico here, the more they kind of tend to be mellow, that gentle and I suppose you could say slow giant. I think that That's not 100% true, and when they're babies, it's not as true. But overall, if you compared like a 20-year-old hyacinth with a 20-year-old Hahn macaw, you'd really still see that the Hahn macaw would be more active. And of course, time slows everyone down, but you know what I mean. They're just more active. When it comes to the macaws, I think another thing that really would affect the choice I would make is the space I have to offer. Back here, I have space. I can put Nico on a perch. Once his wings fly out, we'll see whether or not he flies. There isn't like really good flying room in here, but it's not bad. And so I really like that. If I was in a small apartment, I would probably risk a Hahn macaw. I would definitely risk a blue-headed macaw. And blue-headed macaws are a little bigger. I'm not as familiar with the severe macaws. I heard from one person who bred them that the severes weren't as nice as the Hahns. Is that true? Is that not true? You know, one of the things is you have to take each person's own opinion into account when you're weighing out what they say, and you also have to take into account the birds they had. In other words, if you've had like 6 severe macaws, you have a pretty good idea of what severe macaws are like. If you've only had 1, you don't have such a good idea, right? So it's all sort of relative, huh, Nico? So, but I'm saying that if you had a small space like an apartment, you know, I would try one of those smaller macaws, but I would definitely do my research because, of course, if you are in an apartment and your walls are thin, if your macaw screams, that could be a problem. So those things are going to also influence, right? So you've got the size, the room you have, and the availability, because some of the beautiful hybrids like the Catalina macaw we used to have, they are not as easy to come by. They don't breed as much and as often, and you know, they're just not as easy to come by as a blue and gold. That also means that the blue and gold is going to be less expensive than a more rare bird like a Catalina. So your budget's going to come into account as well. Now, if I did not have to worry about money or space at all, I wouldn't have 1 macaw, I would have a couple of macaws. We do have Hahn macaws, and I love them. We do have a blue-headed macaw, and she's phenomenal. She's like him, just mellow and really, really sweet. And of course, we have him. But if I had unlimited funds, oh, a hyacinth, you know, it is that amazing blue and gentle, and they just, one that I met, I haven't really met one that seemed mean, and they just seem like these big, like kind of like a big fluffy dog, like one of the big fluffy dogs that like only wants to hug you. That is my impression of a hyacinth, but don't forget, guys, I haven't had one. So, you know, and I'm going to touch on a military macaw, and we've had some experience with a millie gold, which means half military, half blue and gold. And what's interesting is I've heard the military macaws are really affectionate, and then I've heard that they're not very good pets. Like, I've heard both ends of those, and I can't really answer that for you. But mixed with the blue and gold, that was a bird that was also just really easy, sweet, you know. Anyway, so it's kind of hard, but I will say that from my limited experience, because like I told you, I've gotten to know 5 species plus the Hahns and the blue and gold. So I guess I've gotten to know 7 species. And out of those, I love the Hahns. It's hard to pick one. I love my green wings. Green wings are just phenomenal. But guys, there just hasn't been a species of macaw. There hasn't really been a species of parrot that I didn't like. So in that sense, I'm really bad at talking about it, but I'm also really good at talking about it because I really think that every species has something to offer. I also think that if you are trying to choose a macaw, one of the very best things you can do is go and meet them, because more than the species, like you might like the colors, and in the bird world, a lot of people who sell birds say people buy birds with their eyes, which means they go for the color or the size, but like they go for them visually. They don't necessarily research their personality, and they don't necessarily get to know them and know what they're getting into. So go and get to know the bird so that you find the bird that is like your match. It's kind of like dating. When you find the right bird for yourself or your family, then you're just going to have this incredible bond that goes beyond a lot of your friendships. It is as intimate as your family, and that bird will be a part of your family. If you just pick based on like color or something like that, you might not necessarily get the right bird for you, and then you might both be really unhappy while your bird's very squawky, hurting your ears, amongst other things. So really do your best to go and meet the bird that you're looking at potentially getting by going and visiting the breeder or going and visiting an exotic bird store and finding the right bird for you. I hope that helps and gives you some ideas about some amazing macaws and, well, macaw species. If you have any questions or comments, please place them below. If you enjoyed this and I was helpful, please give me one of these. I'm an advocate for all parrots, so like I can't say that one species isn't good, but I can definitely give you highlights on different ones. I hope you enjoyed this. I will catch you in the next blissful video.